Tonight I'm thrilled. Our children are back in school, and for the first time, I'm allowed to speak about the strike and the contract negotiations. This is my first opportunity to set the record straight and to give my opinions. Let me start by saying how gratified I am that the strike is settled and our children are where they should be, back in school. I congratulate all sides for coming to agreement. I'm happy for our teachers and I'm happy for the city. And most of all, I'm happy for the parents and children that the kids are back in school. This contract makes the salary competitive with teachers in the region. Competitiveness with the region and with cities like us are the relevant measure, not statewide averages. Comparing us to statewide averages means we're comparing ourselves to 50 cities and 300 small towns. It means we're comparing ourselves to Brookline, Newton, Cambridge, and Wellesley. This isn't the right metric. We have to be competitive to get the right teachers. We have to be competitive with cities in the region and with cities like us. That's the proper metric. We were already on track to do this. 3 years ago, the teachers signed a contract that gave them, I couldn't vote on it, but I thought a fair increase. The cost of that contract 3 years ago, with step increases factored in, amounted to about a 10% increase spread out over 3 years. Before the strike, we paid our teachers more than Lawrence on average, but we were slightly behind Methuen and other cities. I thought an increase was warranted. Paying teachers a competitive salary has many benefits for our community. Studies have repeatedly shown that attracting and retaining the best teachers is the key to improving student performance. I have no problem with paying a competitive salary. I haven't been allowed to say that during the negotiations, but now I can. I commend both parties for fighting hard for what they believed was right, and in the end, both giving to compromise and reaching a settlement. The settlement upgraded the pay of teachers without giving away the ship or the management rights that our superintendent needs to run our schools. The contract did not give in to unreasonable union demands, nor did it force teachers to take unreasonable offers. I don't think the strike ever should have happened at all, but once it did, everyone did their job. Let me set the record straight on a few things I haven't been allowed to comment on. Let me first address the people who wanted to know why I hired a particular PR firm, a lady said it tonight, or a particular school committee attorney. The PR firm was hired by the school committee, not by me. I played no role in it, and I certainly wouldn't have hired that firm, although they sounded good on paper. The lawyer for the school committee was hired after a public bidding process, hired by the school committee, not by me individually, after a bidding process when Bill Cox retired. There were many, many people who contacted me asking why I wasn't getting involved in the strike. Some wrote in response to a post asking me to, quote, release the funds. Now, I understand this was the heat of battle. I've been in many battles myself as an attorney. I've been on many picket lines and as a mayor. I understand in the heat of battle people say things, but this was misleading. I wasn't withholding any funds. There was nothing to release. Some people wrote or posted in response to a letter from a high school teacher who should have known better, asking me to use my influence to create a just contract. He knew that I'm not allowed to do that. My son is a teacher and a member of the union. I was repeatedly warned by the State Ethics Commission and by the city attorney that I could not attempt to influence the negotiations or even comment upon them. At one point, I was told by the Ethics Commission I couldn't even comment on the school budget. This wasn't from a lack of trying. I wrote to the Ethics Commission. I was on the phone repeatedly with the Ethics Commission and with the city attorneys and sometimes with outside counsel, looking for some legal way to get involved so I could try to stop the strike before it happened or settle it quickly once it did happen. I was warned that any attempt to influence the outcome could result in steep personal fines. When I'm sworn in every 2 years, I swear an oath to uphold the laws of the Commonwealth. Those laws include conflict of interest laws. To those who wrote, called, texted, phoned me, urging me to get involved, to use my influence, as the high school teacher said, You are asking me to break the law. This I could not and would not do. I was disappointed in that letter, and I was disappointed in the people who shared it, not one of whom bothered to call me. Now that I can comment, let me thank those who were involved. Dr. Murata, Assistant Superintendent Piffling, school committee members Scott Wood, Paul Magliochetti, and on the last day, Rich Rosa. You worked incredible hours, sometimes late into the night. I know, because I was down in my office. I saw people outside, and I knew you were upstairs, trying to reach a settlement. This is a part-time job for you. School committee members make $8,000 a year. You stepped up to the plate to work for a settlement that was fair to all sides, a settlement that made our salaries competitive, but was also affordable to those who have to foot the bill. I want to thank Dr. Murata. Dr. Murata worked incredible hours. She was always an advocate for the teachers, always strongly advocating for them, but also worked hard to bring peace and bring everyone together. I want to thank Assistant Superintendent Michael Piffling, who did a great job pricing out the various proposals. And I want to thank the union, in the end, for compromising, working with a city negotiating team to come up with a fair and reasonable compromise to end the strike. Now, I have to be candid with you. Everyone wants to say nice things tonight, and I'd like to leave it at that, but I didn't agree with calling a strike. Strikes by municipal employees in Massachusetts are illegal, and for good reason. The children suffer. I really felt the union could have achieved their goals by going to mediation and fact-finding. Although fact-finding isn't legally binding, in a way it is. As we saw during the strike and as we saw tonight, teachers have tremendous public support. I doubt that any school committee would even try to resist paying what a fact finder found to be reasonable. In my humble opinion, that would have been a better process. But what's past is past. I didn't agree with calling the strike, and I stand by that. But the important thing is the strike is over. All parties worked hard together, including the union, so that we could all get back to business, and I thank everybody for that. During the strike, I clearly saw that many people in the city are hurting. Parents are hurting. The children weren't in school. Unexpected daycare costs and burdens were suddenly thrust upon them. City employees, many of whom had trouble during the strike with the noise outside, are hurting, asking me if this strike took all the money and there was nothing left for them. I want to assure those employees tonight that this did not happen. I heard loud and clear during the strike that many of our teachers are angry, upset, and unhappy. We all need to heal that wound, to show teachers that the community values them, that we value them, and move forward together. For many years, our city was hurting financially. Part of it was the Hale debt, the largest municipal debt of any city in the state in the history of the Commonwealth in 400 years. That devoured our resources for 2 decades. When we had Brian Dempsey, we had some relief for a small portion of the Hale debt, but when we lost Brian, we lost a lot. But the Hale debt was only part of it. When the recession hit in 2008 and 2009, our revenues and our state aid plummeted. When COVID hit, our revenues plummeted again. State aid to cities and towns, the formula put in by the state legislature, has shortchanged us for years. We tried our best to make this up on the local level. When I started, we were funding schools at the minimum level set by the state. Today, we're $10 million, or 12% above that minimum. The school budget has doubled in the past 11 years, and the school budget was up $9 million this year alone. There is absolutely more to be done, and I hear that loud and clear. Now that the legislature has amended the state aid funding formula, I think cable can get a fair shake. And with the Student Opportunity Act, there's hope on the horizon. I mentioned people that were hurting. On a personal level, this caused me a lot of sleepless nights. Not because of the protests, I've been on a lot of them myself. But I was up nights worrying that this settlement would be so high that we wouldn't be able to do the Constantino project without a debt exclusion. The Constantino project is the most important project in this city right now. It's our chance to even the score, to show the parents in the inner city that we care just as much about them as we care for the parents in Bradford when we did the hunking. We worked for many years to build up our excess levy capacity so that we could build a concertina without a debt exclusion. I feared that a settlement that was too high would inadvertently kill the concertino, something that I know that no one on either side of the bargaining table wanted. And I know the union wants the concertino just as much as we do. I want to assure everyone here tonight that this did not happen. We will go forward with the concertino. Most importantly, our students are hurting. Our students have suffered enough. I strongly urge all parties to work together so that this will never happen again. Our students should be in school. We all have to work together to make that happen. We must never allow this to happen again. Now, I get a lot of questions about what happens next. People want to know if we can make this agreement work, and the answer is yes. We can make it work, we have to, and we will. Under Proposition 2.5, our tax revenues can only go up by 2.5% a year plus new growth. The increase in this contract is 12% or 4% on average per year. With step increases, salaries will go up by 15% in the next 3 years. Obviously, these types of increases aren't sustainable on a regular basis. The cost of this settlement over 3 years is $18 million plus $7 million in step increases. But because of the Student Opportunity Act and ESSER funding, we can and we will make this work. We will make it work in the first year because of the Student Opportunity Act and ESSER funding. Unless there's a recession and our revenues plummet, we can make it work in the second year. After that, we're going to need our state legislators to step up to the plate with increased state aid so that this can work. This contract must work, and we must make it work. For right now, we will make this work. Now, people ask me if taxes will go up as a result of the settlement. Every dollar that a city spends ultimately comes from tax dollars, federal, state, or local. That's where the money comes from to run the city. I heard a lot during this about one-time money, ARPA money, free cash stabilization. You can certainly use one-time money in the first year to pay for an increase, but ultimately one-time money can't pay for recurring expenses. All of it comes from taxes. That's how education is funded. There's no magic way to do this. But there's a famous expression from Supreme Court Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes. Taxes are the price you pay to live in a civilized society. Paying for good education, paying for the hunking, for the concertino, and for salaries to attract better teachers, this is exactly what we should pay taxes for. I never had a problem with using tax dollars for better education, and I don't now. But I'm aware that right now people are hurting. Prices are high. Money is going to be required to be appropriated for the additional cost of this contract. Fortunately, we have reserves, which we have carefully built up over the years. I intend to ask the City Council to use some of the reserves to cover it in the first year so we can keep our tax increase at a reasonable level. Now that this is over, and again, we're thrilled it is, our first order of business has to be to unite a fractured community. I know that many people are angry. We heard from some of them tonight. I know it's going to be very hard to put aside the anger, the frustration, and the bitterness that's divided us, but we must do so, and we must work together for common goals. The common goals as a school committee should include two things. First, we must recommit to narrowing the education and achievement gap. Our goal has to be to make certain that a child at the Tilton School, which should be considered as the next school on our list, gets just as good an education as a child as any other school in the district. We made progress on that. We got a grant from the state to add additional resources to Tilton, and it worked. The legislature is doing its job to put more money into gateway cities, and this is what we need to commit to, narrowing the education and achievement gap. And secondly, we must commit to build a new Constantino school. We should not be putting that project at risk by going for debt exclusion. We should unite that the Constantino needs to be done. It's the most important project in the city right now. It is the largest investment in our infrastructure in our history, and the largest investment in schools in our history. We need to commit to work together to get it done. I know that with our strength as a city, with our resilience, with the good people in the city working together, I know we can achieve both of these things. Thank you all very much.